In this video, we're going to take a look at creating an assembly drawing in BluePrint PCB. I've started off with a really simple two-page assembly drawing, and then we'll add some pages to it as we go through. I've got a top and a bottom side view placed, some notes, and a parts list placed. And then, as I said before, we'll go ahead and add to those as we go through this. So this is a template. This is what most of our users want to create. And then when they're ready to start documenting their PCB, their design, they import the data into BluePrint, which is what we're going to do now. So now we're going to import data in order to finish off our drawings here. From most CAD systems, we can either accept ODB++. From PADS, we can accept their ASCII and IPC 2581 from most CAD systems. Whenever you load data into BluePrint, it will ask you which of your drawings that you want to update with that information. You don't always have to update all of your drawings. We'll say OK here, since this is the first time we brought data into our drawings. So as you can see, it's created a top and a bottom side view here. We'll work with those a little bit in just a second. And it's created a parts list here based off of that incoming data. One thing you might notice in my parts list here, first of all, it is one of those parts lists that start from the bottom and go up. You have that choice, of course, in BluePrint. If we go to the format options here for the parts list, we can take a look and you can see that there's all sorts of options on how the parts list populates. Does it go right to left, left to right? How many rows does it do before it splits? Does it put a header at the top? So many options here to control how your parts list looks. This is where you can set your data source, and you can also sort your parts list here. You can choose what fields it sorts by. And also, do you want to see your reference designators by ranges or instances? Now, as far as the item number field goes, some people get this from another source, so you could always bring that in via CSV import and then associate it to your current design. We could also use the parts list manager to create those item numbers for us. So by default, it's going to do it by for items that aren't in that incoming data, but I can actually make it do it for items in that incoming data as well. And now it's created my item numbers. If I click OK to that, you can see that they're here. If I wasn't in any particular order here, I could go back and have it sort by item number. This parts list is just one of our templates. If you have other items that you want to show in your parts list, you can go into any of these fields, format the cell, and then choose items that are defaults, or if you brought in via CSV, you'll see those options in here as well. And then once you load data, it executes and creates your parts list. One of the things that you can do with BluePrint is electronic documentation. Now, while we understand that the de facto standard is using Adobe's product, the PDF, we give you another option as far as output goes, that you can use our own internal viewer. And then we've made the internal viewer much more powerful than PDF. You can see all the different things you can search for here. It's not just reference designators, but we've also hyperlinked to a view of the PCB. So even if you are sending PDF out maybe to your contract manufacturer, you could do something like this internally for your shop floor incoming quality inspection, and all they need is the BluePrint viewer so that the hyperlinks work. And you can do them other places as well. As a matter of fact, if I zoom in over here, I've actually got a video linked. And this is another thing you can do with electronic documentation, is that you can embed or link to external items. And then if you are using the BluePrint viewer, of course, you can launch those. But if it's PDF, that's fine. We can fully deal with that. We have both PDF export and the ability to print PDF in BluePrint. So let's just zoom in on one of our drawings here, and let's work a little bit with that. So we're just going to fit sheet, and let's go in here to our top side view, maybe move it over a little bit, and same thing with our bottom side view. And let's start working with these views. So what are we looking at here? Basically what's happened is BluePrint has taken the component outlines and placed them on the drawing, and then it has recreated the reference designators based off of some parameters that you can set, centered them within those component outlines. And you can always come in and change this and just tell it to regenerate the reference designators. This will help you with RefDes cleanup. Obviously it's not going to change U104 to U15. It's going to maintain what you had in your CAD database, but it does give you that ability to clean up much easier. I can always turn on the selection of reference designators as well. So if I come over here and I turn on reference designator selection, I might grab this particular reference designator, and I have format options, show the leader lines and so forth. Or the other thing I can do is just simply drag it, and maybe I want to just place it right there, right on that outline, and I might change the color of the outline to be gray or something that the reference designator still stands out against. And then once I do something like that, I can always come in and tell it to apply that to that format to the other components of that type. That's one way to work with reference designators. Another one would be to just do a window select and select a bunch of them and just simply pull them off. Okay, obviously this isn't the most complex board, but as you can see, if you have a bunch of passives that are all grouped together, you could use this cleanup to help you clean up the assembly drawing much quicker. We're not trying to create a silk screen here, we're trying to create an assembly drawing. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of options as how you place these once you do select them here. And whether you want to see the terminators, the leaders, and so forth, again, when using this optimization in BluePrint. Now the other thing that's going on here is that, as I said before, we're showing the component outlines and the reference designators. Well, we have the entire CAD database sitting behind this, so if there's anything else I might want to turn on, I can turn those on. Okay, and you'll also notice as I move my mouse around over here in this view, once I say OK to this, that I actually get a little preview of what the item is, a little tooltip. So that can help you as well, maybe on your shop floor or in assembly if they were using this as well. Again, this requires the viewer or BluePrint itself. Let's go back in here for a second. We'll turn off those traces and routes. We're just going to leave the components on there. But let's go to the Advanced tab. Now here I can come in and select any component or even some of my footprints and do things like not show reference designators or make them a certain color. Again, the options are up to me as far as how I want to deal with this. So let's do this. Let's go back over here and let's just sort that column, and then we're going to grab these 4 reference designators, and we're going to put a fill in there, and that fill is going to be red, and it's going to be a checkerboard pattern. Say OK and OK, and it goes ahead and puts that fill in for me. The next thing I'm going to do is actually, instead of selecting reference designators in here, I'm going to go in and select components, and we'll just go in there and turn on select components, and I can select one, or I can group select, or I can group select out of this PCB view format pane. Now this is a very powerful part of BluePrint, not always apparent to everybody, and this can be turned off and on under view and panes, and it's the PCB view format pane. So I've got a top side view selected. These are obviously on the bottom side since they're not turned on or they're not checked, but you can see all the ones that are checked. If I now go in here and do a shift multi-select and right click, I can adjust the component properties for everything in this view. So whether I want to show pins, I want to show them as outlines and mark pin ones, and maybe mark them as squares and mark them as red, I can say OK, and it does it to all of them as opposed to one at a time. But when I'm in that single component selection mode, I can just double click on a component and just double click on it, and it will give me that same component dialog, but this is only going to affect this particular component. So the two options, or there's actually three, is I can choose them out of here, I can select them here, and then I can also window select them and choose to format particular components. Let's jump over to our bottom side view for just a second. Let's look at some other options here. One thing I might do is I might have an area that I want to call particular attention to on my designs. So I can go in here with my drawing tools and just basically draw a polygon around an area. So I'm just going to go in here and draw a polygon, not real complex there, but once I close that polygon, if I right click on it, I can say save as exploded view, and whatever area that polygon is over is what's going to be exploded in my exploded view. But the exploded view is just another PCB view, so I can go into my format exploded view. It's going to start with a magnify view, but again I have access to all the data, and we're looking at the bottom side now, and maybe I want to show some rework. I can turn that on. It's dimensionally correct, and it also will give me the tooltips as I'm in there looking at it. So the exploded view can be very powerful. Make it as big as you want to. You can even, if you right click on it here, move this to another sheet if you wanted to, but it would still maintain the link. The next thing you might do on an assembly drawing would be a variant. Basically we can drop any view again. Let's put a top side view down, and then we're going to format it to show a variant. Now variants can be brought in a couple different ways. If you're using pads ASCII, they actually come in with the pads ASCII, but for most users they bring them in via CSV import. You can simply just bring in the data, not having the uninstalls if you want to, or put a keyword in there for uninstalls, and then you'll have a variant, and you can turn that variant on and decide what you want to show in that variant. And in this case, my uninstalls, I'm putting a solid red fill on to show that they're uninstalled. If I go to my variant manager under tools, you can actually see the variant build 1 there, and if we drop down the LEDs, you'll see they're uninstalled. So again, there's a option to import these. You can even create it in BluePrint, but there's an option to import them, or if you are a pads ASCII user, they do come across in the pads ASCII. Another option in BluePrint, and this is typically for people doing their own assembly, is process steps. These are the color-coded aids that help in assembling the design. So we're going to start off with a new one here, and we're just going to call this assembly. And it might have several steps made, so you can go and define those steps down here and then grab whatever parts you want into those steps by using a basic template. Or you could go in and do it a couple other ways. I could go in and do a part type template and maybe select particular part types or part numbers and have it create their own group based off of that. There's also a component attribute, and I can go in and choose a particular attribute. So let's just do this, and we're just going to do by technology just so we get some here. I'm going to tell it to auto generate the colors, but let's make it the line color and the fill color and just generate my subgroups. So it did it for me. Again, you can choose which items you want to be in each color, but these accelerators can help you get through it quicker. Once I've done that, then again it's just a matter of putting down a PCB view and then formatting that particular view to show the process step. And you can even have process steps that are specific to a variant. And you can choose which ones that you want to show in each view. You may not show them all in each view. You may have 3 or 4 different views. You know, hand solder or manual solder or automatic, or which machine you're using. Those can all be set up and then color coded, and you have your nice assembly aids here. And of course you can drop down a chart to go along with that. I have this set up to continue to the next page, so it's going to go ahead and populate and then continue on to the next page. But as you can see, now I have a process step chart that goes with the process step here. And if I were to go to the next page, you would see the end of that. And it might be that I just end up putting it on this page along with my parts list. All right. So again, let's go back and look at our 2-page assembly drawing now. As you can see, we've added top, bottom side views, exploded or magnified views. We have a variant shown. We have a process step shown. We have a process step chart. We have a parts list. We could actually drop down a variant list if we wanted to as well. So these are some of the things that you can do in BluePrint for creating assembly drawings. Now, a new feature, and I'm actually going to go back to single sheet, and let's add a new sheet here. And I don't have this set to automatically add the border and title blocks, but that's another thing, of course, that comes along with BluePrint, is that it would automatically do things like add title blocks and so forth whenever you say new sheet. But on this new sheet, what I want to do is I want to put a 3D assembly view down. Okay, and what's happening now is it's actually building the 3D model from the incoming data, any height information, and using the component outlines to build the 3D model here. I'm just going to make it quite big here, and then what I'm going to do is right click on it and say edit the 3D view. And what happens is it brings me over into our 3D viewer, where I can manipulate this view any way I want to. So let's just say, for instance, that I wanted to show something right here, and then maybe I want to turn off my components. I could. Or maybe I want to even show, in between the layers. I can spread the layers apart. The point of all this is that once I have the view that I want to see, I can just simply go back to edit now, and that view updates here on my drawing. So you can always go in and view a 3D design with the 3D tab, but if you want something to show on a drawing, you would right click on a 3D assembly view in your drawing and then modify it, and then it updates to show that information. We also have another idea, and that's a scrollable parts list, and that goes right along with the same idea here, or same thing, is that in this scrollable parts list, I can actually now export this to a 3D PDF. And what a 3D PDF allows is cross-probing from this scrollable parts list to this PCB view in 3D. So I can actually go and select the components over here as I select them out of the parts list. So aside from regular PDF, there is the option for 3D PDF in BluePrint as well. So now one more view of our data set. Again, our options from this point as far as output would be export PDF, and that would include 3D PDF if you do have that option. Export DXF, not as common, but some people do it. And then if you just rather use your favorite printer driver, print, and choose your PDF writer that you have, and go ahead and print this to PDF. So all those options are available to you. You can also just save this as a Blueprint database. We call it the Downstream Product Database, DPD, as of this version. And then you can open that up in our free viewer, and of course all the intelligence and hyperlinking is available to you there. So that's an assembly drawing. It's not everything you can do with an assembly drawing, but a lot of the options for creating an assembly drawing in BluePrint PCB.